Welcome to this tutorial. In this first part, in this first tutorial, we're going to be talking a little bit about the project that we want to create and how we're going to accomplish that. I have here a demonstration to do, and if you're not very familiar with C# or SQL Server at this point, I would ask you actually to go back to my blog and see the beginner part, where you're going to actually be able to see that some tutorials on C# and SQL Server. If you're familiar a little bit, we're going to see a little detailed part in this tutorial where we're going to be using WPF, C#, SQL Server, and how to use Linq to SQL, which is a really nice feature. Let me open here my Visual Studio so I can actually show you what we're going to be doing. If I open here my school system, is the project I named to do that. Actually, I've done that, so I'm just going to show this so you can actually know what we want to accomplish. And here it is. When I run the program, that's what I have. A main window in WPF. It's an extremely basic one. Much more can be done here. But as I said, it's just for showing us what we want to do. It will actually be up to you to change, to make it nicer, or make it whatever way you want. And in fact, it's advised so we can actually learn more on the topic. Whatever we can do to make it nice, we're going to be doing here. But we have limited time. So that's what the program does. If I come to the menu, I have the options of add a student, add class. So if I come here and add a student, and let me put here Bruce, and let's put a last name as Black, Bruce Black. And I'm adding that student, saying that to me. If I come here to view, I'm gonna be able to see the last guy I added, Bruce Black, which is a male. That's his ID. The ID is being created using the out incremented thing in SQL Server. Another thing that we do here, I could add a class. I'm not gonna do that right now. It's the same principle. Students, I can edit students. For example, this one that I just added, if I want to update that information, and I want to put here now white, update student, now it's like it changed. So I could just edit the student, whatever. Maybe I made a mistake or something. So I can also delete that student. So let's actually delete this one here, Tony. Okay, it deleted. I could add a class to a student. I could drop a class. I could see the status of a class. In the view, I'll be able to see all the students. So if you go back here, now I have Bruce, but I don't have Tony anymore because I dropped it before. The same goes for classes. I can see all the classes that I have, and I can see what students are taking those classes. So for example, let me see if I have anybody for 140. Okay, I have this guy for 140. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. Hopefully that'll be helpful somehow. And before we actually do that, we should do some designing. In this case, we're going to do some designing the database. That's where we're going to probably need the most at this point before we start doing that. And let me close then Visual Studio and open SQL Server Management. Let me connect to it. Okay, so when you open the SQL Server Management Studio, that's what you're going to be seeing. You're going to see here this connection, which has those databases. Some databases are actually default databases. For example, master model, MSDB, TempDB. You can actually create databases inside of those databases or create tables inside of the databases. In some cases, they're advised, in others, they're not. It's good to know that in the TempDB, this name is actually has a purpose. If you create an object right here in TempDB that is not for testing, you're probably going to be in trouble because the object is going to be deleted whenever you close Management Studio. So If we want to create in the other databases, that's fine. We should first of all though see what we wanted. For example, the model one. If you want to create templates and configure those to be used in another database, that's where you want to go. Master, it's more like an administrative database, I would say. We can avoid though to use those, and that's what I have here. I created another database here, school system, for that project. But right now I want to create another database that we're going to be using in this project. And how I do that, if I come here into databases again and click right button and I put here new database, it's going to ask me for a name for it. Since I already have a school system, I'm just going to call this one school, since I'm going to be doing the same thing. So let me do it here. Okay. Now what happened is I have another database that I created here. Whenever I go to Visual Studio, I'm going to have to find a way of connecting to this database, and we're going to see how we do that whenever we get there. So right now I don't have anything here in this database, so if I go to tables, it's not going to show anything, or views. The views actually it shows whatever you have for the database schemas that you needed. For the database diagram, where I'm going to create a diagram later, if I try to do something right now, I won't be able to, right, unless I create them as a saying. I'm going to say no right now. And the other things here, it's not really important for us at this point. We may talk about them sometime in the future, but right now let's just talk about the tables and what we want to create. So as we said before, we want to have a student. We must have a student in the school. We also must have classes. We must have a way of getting those students connected to those classes. And I'm going to call that registration. There are many other things that we have in the school, as grades, as the status of the class, employees. At this point, let's just stick with the basics. Let's just stick with the basics. And the tables that I want to create here will be students, classes, and registration. So how do we create that? If we right click here, right on tables, and do a new table, it's gonna open that window for me. So here is where I'm gonna start putting the name for the columns. Right now, let me first get a name for that table. So as we see here on the right part, on the property window, I have table 1. That's how it is named. Of course, you don't want that name for it. So let me just name it student. I'm going to create, first of all, the student object, or the student table. So there you go, put a student. So now I can start creating the fields. So a student will have a student ID, which is going to be an int. Here saying allow nodes. This one is going to be a primary key, and primary key nodes are not allowable. But I don't really need to do anything here right now. If I just come here and do a set primary key, there you go, it set it, and it was taking that automatically. If I actually try to do now to put allow nodes, it's just going to give me the error, say, okay, that's a primary key, you can do that. Another thing that student has is first name. So let's put here first name. Let me get here as a varchar. Last name. Varchar. Okay, so that's how we're going to be creating that and all of those other guys.